Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at this first worksheet on operant conditioning. We're right now going to look at reinforcement and punishment. Remember, reinforcement, there's any consequence of a behavior that strengthens that behavior. So reinforcement, the consequence, which is reinforcement, is always pleasant. If it's pleasant by adding something pleasant, then it's positive reinforcement. Addition, positive. If it's pleasant by taking away something unpleasant, it's negative reinforcement. Pleasant because you're getting rid of something that you don't like as a consequence. Negative because it's subtraction. So let's take a look first at this first worksheet. And there'll be, sorry about that. There will be a few more. And these worksheets for this chapter are absolutely critical, more so than any other chapter. So let's take a look. A student volunteers to answer tough questions in class. Teacher comments favorably on the quality of the student's contribution. Positive reinforcement. Praise feels good. That student will probably raise their hand again. Positive reinforcement. A wife brings home some flowers for her husband because of the special dinner he cooked for her. The behavior, by the way, we're analyzing each one of these is the behavior that's underlined. So we're looking at the consequence of the husband cooking. The consequence of the husband cooking for the wife is the wife bringing him flowers. Let's assume he's secure enough in his masculinity to like flowers, and he enjoys the flowers. That's positive reinforcement. Again, for the husband, he's likely to cook for his wife again. A child is sent to his room with no supper after presenting a bad report card. Now, here we're talking about punishment. Okay? Punishment is a consequence designed to weaken behavior. If you add something unpleasant to weaken behavior, like a spanking or yelling, that's positive punishment. If you take away something pleasant in order to make the consequence unpleasant, for example, taking away television, taking away a cell phone, getting grounded, negative punishment. Okay, so here we have negative punishment. The child has to go up to his room, can't go outside and play or do whatever he or she wants to do because they got a bad report card. Dad and son enter the checkout line of the supermarket when the child screams for candy. Dad pops a sucker in his mouth. As a result of the child screaming, he gets rewarded. He gets a sucker. So that's positive reinforcement of the child screaming. That child will scream the next time they go in the store. Now, for the father, it's negative reinforcement because by giving the child the sucker, I get the child to stop screaming. And you see this a lot with parents, especially in stores. In order to get the child to be quiet, they'll give them what they want. Terrible practice to get into. Short-term gain for a long-term loss. A child spills milk all over the supper table, and mom, having had a bad day, swoops the child up from the high chair and spanks him. We've got classic positive punishment with spanking. A student has a terrible headache after an intense preparation period for a test, takes 2 aspirin. Let's assume it goes away. Here we've got negative reinforcement. The result of me taking the aspirin is pleasurable. My headache goes away. How is it pleasurable? Something unpleasant, my headache, is taken away from me. Negative reinforcement, negative subtraction. 2 children who usually spend most of their time fighting. Let's go over this one last, okay? Let's skip that one. As a spoiled child is being driven by a fast food restaurant, she begins screaming she must have French fries or she won't survive. Parents surrender and drive in for a large supply. Again, we've got here the parents surrendering to get the child to be quiet. As a result of the parents buying the French fries, the child stops screaming. That's negative reinforcement for the parent. Something unpleasant for the parent goes away, namely the child screaming. And again, for the child, it's positive reinforcement. Child screams. What's the consequence of the child screaming? They get what they want. French fries. A teenager whines about having nothing to do. Dad gives him a lecture about all the stuff in his room in the good old days when the father didn't have all that stuff but managed to still be happy. Here we've got classic positive punishment. As a result of the teenager whining, the father goes into a speech that the teenager really doesn't want to hear. That's an addition of an unpleasant consequence to the teenager. So hopefully they won't whine much in the future. We'll talk a little bit more in another video about punishment and the weaknesses of punishment compared to reinforcement. First of all, with punishment, you have to get caught. Somebody else usually has to punish you. Reinforcement, it's not quite that way. But we'll talk about that in a future video. A terrorist applies an electric current to the feet of a spy to make her confess. She tells him everything she knows. Negative reinforcement. As a result of my confessing, the unpleasant torture goes away. Something unpleasant goes away, that's a pleasant consequence for me. Negative reinforcement, negative subtraction. This is one of the reasons why opponents of torture criticize torture, because they claim that people will say anything to get the unpleasant torture to stop, not necessarily the truth. All right, the one we skipped, let's do that one now. Two children who usually spend most of their time fighting finally play peacefully over a coloring book. Dad peeks in and sighs. At last they're getting along. He returns to work without saying anything to them. So here you have two kids that normally fight. They finally are playing peacefully with each other. Dad somehow sees them, but he doesn't do anything. He doesn't say anything to them. In fact, they don't even know Dad is there. So the children really don't get any consequence at all, particularly any reward or any reinforcement for their behavior. Now, if the dad was smart, the dad would say to himself, geez, this is really nice. I want them to play without fighting more. I want them to play more often, peacefully like this. He should reward them. He should reinforce that, at least initially. So what we have here is an example of operant extinction. If you do not reinforce behavior, over time that behavior will go away. If you reward your dog for laying down with a treat, so when you say lay down, they lay down, you give it a treat. If you no longer give them treats when you say lay down, nor do you give them praise or anything else positive at all, eventually they're going to stop laying down when you say lay down. All right, so those are the answers to the first worksheet. I want to talk a little bit about reinforcement schedules. Reinforcement schedules are all about one thing. So when you think about them, think about answering this question. What triggers when reinforcement happens? That's what they're about. They're about reinforcement in real life. Because we don't get reinforced in real life every single time we do something. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Some things in life are set up to reinforce us every time, and some things in life aren't. So that's the first thing. So we have either continuous reinforcement, something that we expect to be reinforced every time. For example, when I order food in a restaurant, I expect to get what I order every single time. That's the way it is. And if I don't get what I order, I'm not paying for it. Nor should I be expected to pay for it. If I order a steak and the waitress brings me a piece of chicken breast and says, sorry, we didn't have any steak tonight, so I'm giving you this. No, that doesn't work that way. Okay? I get what I order. And if I order a steak medium rare or rare and it comes out well done, I'm not paying for it. And they're going to take it back. When we order food, when we buy a product, when we put money in a vending machine, we expect reinforcement every single time. And if we don't get it, it should be corrected. Okay? If I go to a casino, however, and I play slots, or I play blackjack or poker or whatever, I'm not going to get reinforced every time. I'll eventually get reinforced, but it might take a little time. If I play lottery, it might take some time. If I'm playing basketball, I don't make every shot. That's intermittent reinforcement. Okay? Now, with specific schedules, we're looking for whether or not my behavior triggers when I'm reinforced or time triggers when I'm being reinforced. If my behavior triggers it, it's a ratio schedule. If it's time, it's an interval schedule. So at the college, if I do a great job for a whole week and I just feel fantastic about the work I've done and my students are praising me, I don't get paid until the following week because I get paid every 2 weeks. They're not going to change my pay schedule just because I did a great job. So that's an interval schedule. It's based on time. It's not based on what I do. However, when I go to the casino and I play blackjack, only when I win do I get reinforced. And I get reinforced right when I win. If I win a hand, I get the chips. And those chips are worth cash, obviously. Okay? If I put money into a vending machine, I expect to get a product out. I have to do something to get the reinforcement. My behavior triggers it. If my parents give me an allowance every week, it's time. A paycheck is time. Waiting for a check in the mail is time. Now, I can either be completely certain of the time that's going to take to reinforce me. If that's true, it's a fixed interval schedule. I can be completely certain of how many behaviors it takes to get reinforcement. That's a fixed ratio schedule. If I'm unsure about time, I know I'm going to get reinforced, but I don't know how much time it's going to take. That's a variable interval schedule. And if I know I'm going to be reinforced for what I do, for my behavior, but I don't know how many behaviors it's going to take, that's a variable interval schedule. So a variable ratio schedule in terms of my behavior. Sorry about that. So let me give you an example of all four of them. Fixed interval, my paycheck, every other Friday. Never changes. Graduation is a certain date in May. Christmas is December 25th. That's when I get my presents. It's fixed. I know exactly when I'm going to get reinforcement. Variable interval schedule. I'm waiting for a check somebody sent me in the mail. I won a prize in a contest, and I'm going to be getting my reward in the mail in the next 2 weeks. I don't know exactly how much time it's going to take. I just ordered something through Amazon. It might come tomorrow, or it might come the next day. I don't know exactly when. Variable interval. Fixed ratio. I go on a farm, and for every basket of strawberries I pick, I get $10. It never changes. It's totally predictable. So if I want $100, let's say I want to make $100 doing this, I've got to pick 10 baskets of strawberries. Variable ratio, sports, gambling, best examples. I know if I keep shooting the basketball, I'll eventually make a three-point shot or a foul shot. But I know I'm not going to make every one, and I also can't totally predict with certainty before I shoot whether that basketball is going in the hoop. Playing the slot machines, playing blackjack, playing poker, I know eventually I'm going to win. And maybe I'll win a lot. Maybe I'll lose a lot. But I don't know until after the cards are dealt and laid down whether I won. I don't know until I pull the handle on the slot machine or press the button whether I win anything or not. Variable ratio schedule. Okay? All right, so keep doing these worksheets as I assign them. They're all on the assignment calendar. I'll keep posting these videos, and this is the best way to learn this material. It's really the only way to learn this material. Doing the worksheets, applying the concepts to the worksheets, reading your book, watching the videos I've posted, and paying attention to the videos that I post that I make. Okay? Good luck. Thanks. Bye.